Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen. It is October 30th, 2025, and you have tuned in for FFPC Insider Access here on the Better Sports Network as we celebrate Fantasy Football Night in America. We got the Ravens and Dolphins ready to kick off in about 74 minutes here. And for the next 2 full hours, you'll be entertained for the best conversation in high-stakes fantasy football on the FFPC. My name is Eric Balkman. You can connect with me on the X at Eric Balkman. That's Eric with a C. You know me from the High-Stakes Fantasy Football Hour, the RotoViz High-Stakes Lowdown, and the Fantasy Football Players Championship. You know this dude from RotoViz.com, at RotoViz on the X, sitting back in the saddle with me tonight at the Cat Dad FF. He is Kevin Szafraniec. Kevin, did I get the last name right this time?
It's close enough. I mean, close as anybody gets. So,
all right, that's what I got last time. Wasn't close enough. I was hoping for more this time, but it is what it is, man. It's no surprise that you go by the Cat Dad FF, which is much easier to remember on X and to spell out than your name too. So kudos to you there. I feel like since the last time you're on, which was sometime in 2024. I feel like you've stepped your game up with everything you're doing at RotoViz. Not only the stuff that you did that you have been doing during the season, but my God, all these team previews that you did really extensive research on as far as what these teams look like in 2024, years past, and sort of prognosticating what they would look like in 2025. I don't know. Is it just me? It just feels like you've done a lot more for RotoViz over the course of this last calendar year.
Yeah, and I mean, a lot of it's just been growth naturally, because I was literally just working part-time. I started last February doing part-time, jumped on full-time at the start of last football season. So, I mean, I think it's a natural growth. And, I got to give Sean Siegel's the GOAT, and I got to give him his flowers because with those team previews that you mentioned, he kind of like helped me out a lot with the outlines of that, of how I'd like to set it up and what we should be highlighting and things like that. So I can't claim all the glory for myself on those, but just that series in itself, just diving in so deep, helped me out a lot it's still helping me out as we go through the season. But I think a lot of it's just like natural progression, and I'm just, grateful that they have me there. And I love it. So the hope is never to go back to a 9-to-5 because, I've been over a year without one. So let's hope we don't ever have to go back to a real job.
Yeah, that's always the plan, right? Is like once you switch over, you never want to go back. And listen, with the work you're churning out right now, I don't think you're in any kind of, I don't want to say danger, but in any kind of area where you'd have to be worried about that. Because I know, like, as far as everything that you churned out before the season, during the season, it's extensive. Like, I never like to say one-stop shop because there's so many great people doing so much great content out there, but yours is as close as it gets with everything that you've got going on at RotoViz. So kudos to you, sir. And kudos.
I appreciate it a lot. Yeah, it means a lot to me. So
you know it. I want to remind everybody too that the FFPC Weekly Challenge is live. There's no draft. There's no salary cap. Just pick your 10 players or 12 players if you want to play with kickers and defenses and win up to $2,500 in Week 9 alone. 10, 30, and 100-team contests are available. Only one player per NFL team. So for the Thursday one that's going to lock here in about a little over an hour, if you want Lamar Jackson, you can't have Derrick Henry. If you want Devon Achane, you can't have Jalen Waddle. One player per team. It's what makes it so much fun and so maddening. Sign up now and play now at myffpc.com. That's myffpc.com. So Kevin, and shout out to our producer, Sean Engel, tonight as well. On tonight's show, we're going to go around the NFL. We're going to hit on a lot of the stuff that's going on as far as Terry McLaurin, the Cam Skattebo fallout. We'll talk a little bit about what the Cardinals are doing at running back this week, which I think has been interesting. We'll get to our Thursday night football preview in about 45 minutes or so here and talk Ravens Dolphins. Tom Smith already chiming in on YouTube. Evening, Balky and Kevin. Go Dolp. Oh, never mind. They have no chance tonight. Ha! I think they do have a chance tonight, actually. I'll tell you why when we get to our Thursday night preview. But we'll talk a little bit about the backup Ravens running backs and what you should be doing with them on your roster. whether Isaiah Likely is going to do anything, not only tonight, but the remainder of the season. And then let's talk about Ollie Gordon. Let's talk about these Dolphins tight ends in tight end premium leagues. I almost said Dolphin premium leagues. That's the type of league Tom Smith would want to play in. Extra fantasy points for any Miami Dolphins. So that'll be our Thursday night football preview. And then we'll go through some starter sits, some interesting ones this week, including but not limited to Tyjae Spears, Kayshon Boutte, Juwan Johnson, and Jackson Dart. And that'll be the show. as we will take you through definitely through the first quarter tonight and the early part of the second quarter on FFPC Insider Access. So let's get into it tonight. The first thing I want to kick things off with is, and I know like if you looked at the rundown, Kevin, you probably saw like there's a lot of quarterback stuff in here, but I think the thing I wanted to hammer home is not necessarily just focusing on the quarterback, but the fallout with a lot of these quarterbacks that are taking over. One is Tyler Shough, who apparently, according to Kellen Moore, this was on NewOrleansFootball.com, or football, excuse me. Nick Underhill reported that Kellen Moore further clarified that his intent is to have Tyler Shough start the rest of the year. The quote from Kellen Moore: "Tyler starting, we're not looking back on that." And honestly, like, okay, here the bar has been set. Like the Spencer Rattler era, probably done in New Orleans. It was over before it started. And now they go to a 26-year-old rookie in Tyler Shough. Go back and think what you thought about this guy preseason, knowing what we saw last week here, Kevin. And then I think the fallout here, this is going to affect the way that we decide on whether Chris Olave makes it into our wide receiver slot, whether Rashid Shaheed makes it into our flex spot, whether Juwan Johnson makes it into a flex spot in tight end premium leagues like the FFPC. By and large here, the Shough thing for the Saints, is this a good thing for those of us who own these Saints skill position players? I didn't even mention Devin Neal or Alvin Kamara. Those are other guys that we have to be looking at too. Is this a good thing by and large for these players that Shough is going to be the starter the rest of the way?
I mean, it's hard to say yes. I mean, Rattler, I've been kind of a Rattler guy. Not over the top, but at the same time, like when you compare, even going back to college, kind of their accuracy, like Shough, especially in the last year, Shough's had a lower accuracy, lower on target percentage, but his ADOT just across the board has been at least like a yard or two higher. So, for fantasy, like Rattler for the most of the season was like a mid-tier like QB2, like where you could fire him up in a super flex league. So, but I mean, Kellen Moore isn't looking at his fantasy teams probably by making this decision. They need to make a move, so it's understandable. And even before we jumped on here, I was writing my wide receiver advanced stats article for the week, and just kind of looking at things, and really like Rattler is, his on target percentage to Olave and Shaheed was around 77%, which is around like 75th percentile over the past 6 years. So like, it wasn't like terrible. He wasn't great. Obviously wasn't terrible, but I mean, I think we're going to get a downgrade when Shough comes in, just as far as like accuracy and things like that. But at the same time, we also might get some more of those big plays, just for the fact that, I mean, even in his limited time this year, he's like a yard above Rattler and ADOT, but at the same time, like, it's not great. I wasn't really a big fan of him coming out. Like a lot of people, I thought he was overdrafted. Even in his limited action this year, he's had negative 8.1 EPA per game, which is like the 5th worst among QBs, and he's barely played. So you could take that either way you really want to. The people that want to believe could say small sample. The people that don't want to believe could say, hey, like he was barely out there and he's like completely, like falling flat. So, the biggest thing I think Kellen Moore's got going for him is just like his offenses are going to have a ton of volume no matter what. They always run fast pace. So at least even if it's not good production, like we're at least going to get plays. And kind of what I'm hoping is Shough kind of, he had decent mobility. He was like one of the few quarterbacks who actually did the athletic testing at the combine. And he had a 4.63 40, which is like 85th percentile. He had a 98 or 89th percentile freak score. So I'm hoping like they can mix in some of that rushing. And I mean, who knows? He could surprise us, but I'm not going to bank on it right now.
I think by and large, kind of what you were doing with your Saints players pre-Shough in the Rattler, when Rattler was under center, you're probably doing the same thing with Shough going forward. And that's, sort of a reluctant start. I don't know. I mean, are you a believer in Chris Olave? Because he's really been coming on lately, Kevin.
Yeah, I mean, his fantasy points over expectations like 5th worst in the league, but he's second most in target and second most in EP. So, and he's wide receiver 9 right now. So you can't really be all that upset about it. And I'm just hoping that even, I'm hoping my thoughts are like he finishes like like mid wide receiver too. I think he can still keep up that sort of production. And I'm hoping maybe like, and Shahid's ADOT, and actually both of their Olave and Shahid's, their ADOT is the lowest of their career this year. So I don't know if that's I'm assuming that's something to do with what Moore's doing there. But even with Shough maybe wanting to chuck it a little more, maybe like we get some more of those Shahid deep shots. I mean, because they're both, playing pretty well. So I think we're okay with rolling. I'm still going to roll with them. I don't think you can like necessarily bench them if you've been playing them.
Do you, Juwan Johnson was a super hot pickup in the leagues that he was still available in after drafting season ended with the FFPC. Started off his season 8 for 76, 5 for 49 and a touchdown, 6 for 51. And then I don't know what happened after that. 3 for 28, 2 for 17, 2 for 15. He's picked it up the last couple of weeks where he gets 5 for 79, 5 for 53. The Juwan Johnson kind of roller coaster this season, is this a good thing for him that he's going to be catching passes from Tyler Shough? And quite frankly, in general, are you buying this upswing that he's on that you can start trusting him as a second flex in FFPC leagues? This week, the Saints have the Los Angeles Rams, Kevin.
Yeah. I mean, it's awesome to see him finally get the volume. He got that big contract this offseason, so it was good. I was still somewhat like skeptical, honestly, like because I was a big Juwan Johnson guy, and then it's like you believe in these guys, and they hurt you so much, and then you finally get off the train, and then they kind of like come back. So or maybe you just emerge for the first time, really, but I mean, it's difficult to say. Like I think he's worth a flex just to throw in because obviously, I mean, it's the design of the offense, and I don't know if like really Shough coming in is going to necessarily change that. So I think their main guys are going to get the same amount of targets. Like the worst thing is like Kamara is not really seeing any like target volume whatsoever. So like if it's just so concentrated between like Olave, Shahid and Johnson, you can keep rolling with it. The other tight ends aren't really doing much of anything. Where that was kind of always the worry. Like last year, like Foster Moreau would come in and have a good game, and and now that even Taysom Hill's back, he hasn't really done much in his first couple of games. So I think it's like those are like the three guys on the Saints that I'd be willing to roll with. But I'm kind of hoping that I have, at least in the case of like Johnson and maybe Shahid, I have somebody like a little better where they're more of like a they're not like locked into my lineups.
We don't have 6 teams on bye this week, so hopefully we're not dumpster diving like we were, or at least like I was in week 8 for sure. Terry McLaurin in week 8 re-injured his quad, is not going to play against Seattle this week. Dan Quinn said this shortly after their game on Monday Night Football ended against Kansas City. This quad injury caused McLaurin to miss 4 weeks earlier in the season, and I'm hoping for the best, preparing for the worst. I'm bracing for another multi-week absence here for McLaurin. And if that is the case, we have to start taking a look again at guys like Luke McCaffrey, at guys like Chris Moore, or do we, Kevin? I think this is interesting here. If we think McLaurin's going to be out, how likely are McCaffrey and Moore going to factor into fantasy lineups with Jaden Daniels at quarterback? But again, these guys are nowhere near the talent of Terry McLaurin.
Yeah, I was kind of on the Luke McCaffrey train, just as like somebody I was monitoring for a while. And then, when like 2 weeks ago, when everybody was out, it was between Chris Moore and McCaffrey. And I, of course, like go for the young, exciting guy, instead of the guy who's been like lingering around. And, McCaffrey did absolutely nothing. So like, it's difficult. I'm just hoping that like Debo comes through. Cause I just, it's really like one of those like roll the dice sort of things. Like, I think like going forward, I'd probably go with Chris Moore again, because like, just maybe like, okay, he's not exciting, but I mean, it's just, it's rough because we love Jaden Daniels. We want to root for Jaden Daniels, but it's almost like such a lost season for Commanders almost this year. I mean, they're 3-5. Their defense is terrible for the most part. Like they have the oldest roster in the NFL. So it's like Jaden Daniels and a bunch of unproven young guys. And like, that's, pretty much it. So then just that the whole Commanders, it's just kind of like a sad state this year. So I think like as far as receivers go, I'd probably be going Chris Moore just because it seems like he's got a spot, no Brown. And I think he's still on IR for a while, for at least for a few weeks. And like I talk down all these old guys and everything, but I'm pretty much like a closet like Zach Ertz fan because I have so much Zach Ertz because I'm like, like as long as Cliff Kingsbury's there, like Cliff Kingsbury loves Zach Ertz, so I'm gonna love Zach Ertz as long as those two are together. And I mean, it's working out okay so far. He's had a bit of a dry patch, but like, the McLaurin thing, he just turned 30, and it's that holdout thing. We hear that when these guys hold out, like they're so susceptible to injuries, and and a lot of time maybe that's a guy coming on their second contract, not their guy coming on their third contract at 30 years old. So, I mean, it's rough. It's just rough, and I just hope that they really like get some guys around Daniels, because right now, like, okay, so Debo's Debo-ish, Debo like in the twilight of his career. He's still having good games, but we can't really bank on that for more than like a year or two more. And as fun as like as Daniels was last year when he willed them to the NFC Championship game, like this is not that team anymore, man. And it's just sad to say, I think.
What happened to Ben Sinnott? I mean, remember everybody was all hyped up about him last year as this young tight end that was going to grow up with Jaden Daniels, and it's still the Zach Ertz show in Washington. But I'm with you. I mean, I think that, and if I was to wide scope this a little bit, I could tell you a story that Washington was punching above their weight last year with, ascending all the way to the NFC Championship game in Jaden Daniels' first year as quarterback. The McLaurin thing, I don't pretend to have the data on this because I don't, but I do think, like, in my mind, these guys that are holding out, and I think it's important too, like the second contract when you're coming up on the end of your 20s, when you're coming up on your 30s and you miss all that time in preseason, it's very difficult to replicate that. Sometimes I think these players go a little bit harder than they should. Because they're trying to catch up, or they're still trying to train as hard as that they would be had they been in camp. I don't know if any of that happened. It's just pure speculation, and maybe that was a cause of this quad here. For fantasy purposes, I think I'm with you. I think that Chris Moore is the upside guy. If you are plugging in Luke McCaffrey, I don't want to say that's loser think, because that's too harsh of a term for it. But what are you really expecting from Luke McCaffrey if McLaurin is out? 3 for 50, maybe a touchdown. I don't know. But Chris Moore is that deep threat there that can really stretch the field, make a few plays, and he could be a difference maker, especially if you're chasing points in your big gorilla or your FFPC main event league. Speaking of the Commanders, Kevin, Tom Smith piping in on YouTube. What has happened to Jacory Croskey-Merritt? And I think he's an interesting case because I have heard from several and read several level-headed people talk about Croskey-Merritt, not JCM fans or anything or haters. And they said, like, look, just be patient with him. Like it's there. You can tell it's there for him. And I just wonder if this is more of a problem with the Commanders rather than a JCM problem. Last week, I mean, they were getting blitzed right away. Never really got a chance to get him going. 9 carries for 25 yards. The week before, again, 13 for 33, 17 for 61. Against the Chargers, a pretty decent defense, he blew up. 14 carries, 111 yards. He gets into the end zone twice. We obviously know what he did against the Giants first week of the season, 10 for 82. And yet he's leaving a little bit to be desired in some good matchups. The Cowboys, the Bears, like these should have been big hits for Croskey-Merritt. Kevin, why do you think they weren't? And what do you think is, quote unquote, wrong with Bill right now?
I don't know. I just kind of like was looking at when I was writing the waivers column yesterday. I was looking at that because I was more saying like, hey, maybe we should be buying into a little bit to the other guys. Not so much Chris Rodriguez right now, but McNichols is. I mean, he was getting some good run. But I mean, like Croskey-Merritt has like the amount of burst that none of those other guys have. And I've always liked Chris Rodriguez for whatever. He's just like one of my guys. But at the same time, like, I mean, Croskey-Merritt is so much better than him. So like, I haven't really dug deep into it, honestly. I can't like say like, ooh, like blocking ABC. I know Tunsil was out last week. So there's that could be part of it. I mean, Tunsil's more, pass blocking more so than run blocking. So, I'm just like you said, like kind of preach patience. I'm jumping onto our site right now.
While you do that, Kevin, I'm just going to point this out. And I kind of alluded to it earlier. It's these negative game scripts the Commanders were falling in, and some of that with Marcus Mariota too. It's difficult when you're playing from behind to really get Croskey-Merritt going. 12th in explosive run rate and 11th in yards after contact per attempt among 6 different qualifying running backs in the NFL. This is the things that we're talking about. Like, you can see it with Croskey-Merritt, right? You can see that there is something there. It's just a matter of aligning, getting, not to say that the stars need to be aligned, because it's not like that, but get a lead, get up 3-0, 7-0, 10-0. And all of a sudden we could see a different Croskey-Merritt than what we've seen over the course of the last few weeks.
Yeah, and so I jumped on the site because I knew that they had a favorable matchup over the rest of the year, the Commanders. But so the Commanders running backs have the best strength of schedule for fantasy rest of the season, according to our strength of schedule streaming app. So I knew it was high, but I didn't know that they were first. So, I mean, for anybody that's looking for a little get right juice, like it could be coming. But yeah, like his recent schedule, especially against Dallas, he put up, like 5 points or less, in the last 2 weeks, and it's rough. But I mean, obviously, like, I may hold back a little bit, to kind of see what's going on going forward. But I mean, the guy at the same time too, you got to remember, like, I was not to say skeptical, but I mean, the guy was a 7th round pick, like
not a pedigree guy. He was not pedigree.
And there's, obviously there's like a lot of like extenuating circumstances that led to that, like his eligibility and this, that, and the other. But, like, I did think that towards the end of draft season, the hype was getting a little bit high, like to the point where I even kind of like in my bold predictions article right before the season, I kind of put something, like something about like Chris Rodriguez, which looks stupid now, but I said like Chris Rodriguez will outscore Jacory Croskey-Merritt. So I'll take the L on that one because I believe that JCM is way better than Rodriguez. He has burst and Rodriguez is still a good player. He's the guy that I like, but at the same time, that was more of a like, hey, like, let's just kind of like bring it back a little bit, and that's kind of coming to fruition because like literally he's had, one RB1 week, like 1 or 2 RB2 weeks. So, like, good story, but like I stopped short of saying that he's going to be a locked in RB1, RB2 for the next 5-10 years. So
I was trying to get the data, and I don't often check fantasy. I mean, I do check Fantasy Mojo quite a bit. Great resource for any FFPC players out there, but I don't often check leagues like ADP at this point of the season because we're so far past it. But I was kind of curious to see where Croskey-Merritt was going as we ended draft season, because you're right, he was ascending super high. And it got a little untenable for those people that were skeptical about him. It was easy for them to just say, to hell with it, I'm going to let somebody else take him. And for the most part, that looks like the right call at this point of the season. As you pointed out, with this schedule coming up, that could change. The Minnesota Vikings are making a quarterback change, kind of. They're going back to what they decided to do at the start of the season. Mike Florio has reported. Kevin O'Connell said that J.J.McCarthy is, quote, healthy and expected to have a full week of practice before week 9 against the Detroit Lions. Kevin O'Connell has been J.J. McCarthy's biggest fan when it comes to how healthy he is, and maybe more importantly, how prepared he is going to be to play against one of the best teams in pro football in the Detroit Lions. Apparently, he's hit what he needed to do in his rehab, and I think that what's intriguing about McCarthy is what he's able to do with his legs. Certainly, we love that from a fantasy standpoint. 25 yards on the ground in both games that he has played so far this season. And the Lions have a lot of problems in their secondary, right? They got a lot of injuries there. I don't know if they're going to unleash J.J. McCarthy this week, but I do think he's intriguing in a game. I'm going to bring up the total on this game right now because I think it's fairly high. He comes back to face a Detroit game where he is an 8.5 point underdog, or his team is, and the total's 48.5. Now, I'm not advocating and sitting here and telling you, hey, J.J. McCarthy, you got to play him this week. However, if you don't have better options, if you are in a situation where, maybe I had a couple of leagues where I've been kind of playing quarterback roulette with a couple of my leagues where I started off the season with Brock Purdy and J.J. McCarthy, and it's been rough. Joe Flacco has kind of saved me there in a few of those games. But I think McCarthy's interesting this week, especially in super flex leagues. I think you got to play him because he's starting, and this is a game where he should get some garbage time. But Kevin, when you look at what he is going to do to the fantasy values in week 9 for players like Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, Aaron Jones, Jordan Mason, will bring those guys up. And of course, TJ Hawkinson as well. All the Suns, the Minnesota Suns, Jefferson, Addison, Hawkinson, Mason, and then Aaron Jones, who doesn't fit in there, but he does. So when you think about McCarthy, what do you think he's going to be able to do against Detroit this week? And when you think about all these other Viking skill position players, which I think all of us are considering playing, some of them, like Justin Jefferson, are must starts. Others, maybe not. The Vikings offense this week against Detroit is going to be very, very fascinating to watch.
Yeah, let's just hope. I mean, that maybe Kevin O'Connell had time to adjust his scheme. Saw what McCarthy did over the first 2 games. Now he's had all these weeks to kind of like, all right, well, when we bring you back, we're going to do X, Y, Z. Mm-hmm. Because I think, a lot of the thesis, even, I was guilty of this too, was saying this offseason, like, hey, Sam Darnold did it, so why can't this guy, and that was probably not the right way to go about it, because we're looking at Sam Darnold isn't like a world beater right now, but he's looking good. He's throwing nice passes to JSN. Like, he's got that offense humming with what they're asking him to do. And McCarthy came out and just looked just bad. He came out, he had that, one good quarter in the first game where they came back. But just in his 2 games, he was averaging negative 13.2 EPA per game, which is the worst in the league of any quarterback. Obviously small sample. 59% on target percent, was tied for the 3rd worst among QBs with 20 pass attempts. But also at the same time, he had a pretty high, his ADOT was 9.1, so he was chucking it down the field. So and just for comparison, last season Sam Darnold was at 8.1 ADOT, 68%. So O'Connell wants to throw it down the field, but at the same time we can kind of bring the reins back in a little bit, and hopefully maybe that'll help him out a little bit. And kind of bringing up Jordan Addison, obviously he wasn't there with McCarthy for the first 2 games of the year. He was out, and they did. I remember seeing against vanilla defenses, and say what you want about the preseason, but they did seem to have a connection in the preseason. So I'm hoping that maybe Jordan Addison being back will help him out. And I think maybe all these factors coming together will hopefully make him a little bit better. In this week's waivers, just talk more 1 QB leagues, but I'm he's somebody we should monitor. He's not somebody that I'm going to run out and try to throw into a league right now, even if he's got a good matchup and all that. But obviously in super flex leagues, especially, if you drafted him and he's on your roster, you're probably not, in a place to really not start him this week. No. So, he's worth a shot. I am a firm believer in Kevin O'Connell. Even, Wentz looked better than McCarthy did, but Wentz is still Wentz. So he's been able to do this time and time again. And this is a guy that's first 2 starts in the NFL. He's not just one of these journeyman veterans that are coming in that's played in the NFL. And we can say what we want about last year. He did, it wasn't a lost season because he had the mental preparation. He got to do some of that stuff. But at the same time, this is his first time, reacting to the speed of the NFL game, on the field and things like that. So I think we got to cut him a little slack, but at the same time, I was preaching just, I don't want to go through the growing pains of McCarthy with these guys that we paid, 1st round prices on, or, but at the same time, I think it worked out perfectly. We're now O'Connell doesn't really have the fallback of Wentz to say, oh, well, if McCarthy doesn't do well, then we can throw Wentz back in there. It's not just he's there's no real leash on it. They're not going to probably throw Max Brosmer in there. So, it's scary, but at the same time, you're playing your Vikings.
Right. Yeah. I think Addison's a fine 3rd wide receiver start this week. Certainly a borderline top 30 play. Hawkinson is the guy I don't have a lot of faith in. I would not be trotting him out there. There's 1 league I can't remember who I have. I have some big tight end on bye this week. And I'm going to have to play Hawkinson, which sucks, but it is what it is. I will say this, Paul Charchian was on Sigmund Bloom's On the Couch podcast this past week or this week? I can't remember. And he did say that something to the effect of like, they didn't necessarily want to put Max Brosmer in there because they were afraid of him looking too good and then creating sort of a quarterback controversy with J.J. McCarthy and Brosmer. Now, I don't know how much truth there is to that. Charch did say he picked him up on his Dynasty Superflex team, Brosmer, that is. I listen, he's a Vikings guy. He would know more than me. But I still think that, I believe not only is McCarthy going to finish this season strong, Kevin, I really believe in his long-term success in playing for O'Connell in that offense with those playmakers. I think he is really set up to succeed, and I think he will. It might be bumpy the rest of the way, but I do believe that we're going to see some really good games from McCarthy here down the stretch. I don't know if it's going to start this week in Detroit, but I'm with you. Jefferson, yes. Addison, yes. I would lean towards Jones over Mason this week, but I think Mason is an interesting flex guy too. The thing I don't like about Mason is if he's not catching passes, you're kind of blowing a spot on your flex, or you're kind of blowing a flex spot in your lineup unless he scores a touchdown, because I don't think he's going to catch passes. I think that's Aaron Jones' job. All right, enough of the Vikings here. We have to move on to Atlanta. And I was doing my local fantasy football show before I came on the air tonight here, or on the stream, I should say. And I was doing an injury report for Atlanta, and it was crazy how like Darnell Mooney got in a full practice today, but Drake London was limited. Kyle Pitts was limited. Tyler Algier was limited. Michael Penix was limited. And that's kind of where I want to go with this here, is the Falcons are pretty beat up right now. Penix leading the way, was expected to take the majority of first-team practice reps all this week, and I don't know if that's happening or not. I assume it is, but I don't know. They get New England this week, which probably a negative game script. I mean, they're 5.5-point underdogs in New England, a total of 44.5 on this game. Certainly Kirk Cousins did not show a whole lot last week, and I don't know what to expect from this Falcons offense this week in New England. Kevin, if Penix is healthy or healthy enough, then yeah, he should keep this offense on the rails. I like Pitts this week. If London's active, I'm obviously playing him. Algier is probably going to be on my bench, and Mooney's interesting too. If he's healthier than a guy like London or a guy like Pitts, then all of a sudden we have to start looking at Mooney as a potential flex in this New England game. A lot to unpack here with the Atlanta offense.
Yeah, I mean, I think at this point, anything's better than Kirk Cousins. I mean, as much as I mean, he seems good dude, good, solid, wholesome family man. You don't really want to bet against him, but like, he was just looking bad. So, I mean, any version of Penix, and I'm not even a big Penix guy, really. Like, truth be told, any version of Penix, I think going out there is going to be a step up for the Atlanta, regardless of who his role players are. I like Mooney. I mean, even though he is, he's had a hard time staying on the field, and then when he has been on the field, Pitts has been, a lot bigger target competition than he was last year. So I mean, like I'd be okay with any of those guys. I guess the biggest thing, Christian Gonzalez is back for New England. So like if London doesn't go, that's something that we would probably have to worry about, because you would assume that he would automatically default to Mooney if he's on the field. I don't think he would just kind of like slide over to Pitts. I don't think Pitts is that imposing. But yeah, I mean, like really at this point, like, and in Penix, I mean, Penix is just so up and down. Like, he'll have some beautiful throws, and then he'll have some like, what are you doing? Sort of like just, throwing the dirt, or, like he's just over, like, so kind of erratic, not like Caleb Williams erratic, but still like, he's a work in progress, but like, I think you have to really like throw out whoever you can. Like you said, to Algier, I'm probably not going to be starting in any leagues, but I mean, if I'm hard up, I wouldn't have any issue like throwing Mooney in there, even if London does sit out. But I do think that maybe like if London's healthy, even if he's more of a decoy, if he's limited, that might open things up for Mooney to kind of take a step forward.
The other frustrating thing about Penix for fantasy, for Superflex leagues, he doesn't run. The first game of the season, he had 21 rushing yards, which was awesome. And then since then for rushing yards, -1, 9, 2, 6, and 6. Hasn't touched double digits since week 1. And we kind of knew that going in. This is part of the prospect analysis on him. He didn't run a whole lot for Indiana and Washington, and he's not running a lot in the pros. We shouldn't be surprised on it. But I do think Atlanta is going to be pretty compelling this week. I lean, like, if you were prop betting on this, I would lean towards the unders on a lot of these players without knowing, what they're set at. But I'm more bearish on the Falcons offense this week, with everybody seemingly so beat up and facing not an easy unit in the Patriots too. Kevin, like everybody this week who's been watching, listening to podcasts and video casts and reading everything, it has been a week-long fantasy funeral for one Cam Skattebo, who we found out not only dislocated an ankle, I'm assuming there's some torn ligaments that go in with that, broke his leg as well. And he is facing a 4 to 6 month recovery period, which sounds bad, but I guess that's kind of good. Like, we kind of knew he was already out for the season. But the deltoid ligament rupture, the fibula fracture, and he's still going to be back in 4 months, potentially 6 months from now. What are we looking at for that? We're looking at April, something like that. So maybe he's back practicing in mini camp in May. We'll obviously be tracking to see how he's doing. Before we get into Tyrone Tracy and Devin Singletary, from a dynasty standpoint with Skattebo, is now the time to strike to try to get him on your roster? Or is it too early? Are people going to have the endowment effect? Are people going to still want to sell Cam Skattebo in a dynasty league at 100 cents on the dollar? What do you think the best approach to be doing if you want to acquire Skattebo in dynasty, or maybe if you want to trade him away? What's the best possible thing that you should be doing right now with that?
I mean, it's like everything, it comes down to team context. I actually traded him. I mean, I'm third in one of my dynasty leagues, and I traded him away this past week. And I mean, it was a bigger trade. I can't remember the exact specifics of it.
There's a lot of pieces.
Yeah. But it was, I mean, I got back Ashton Genty, Tyrone Tracy, and I think Josh Downs, I want to say, were like the three that I got back. And I traded away, Skattebo, like Travis Hunter was part of that. But more or less, I was just in the win now mode. So I think it really just depends, like I didn't want to give up Skattebo, but I think, there is enough uncertainty that I was like willing to part with him. Like, oh, he's not necessarily going to come back and be the same guy. Like, we all know that he's not fast, but at the same time, his explosion at the combine was crazy. Like, he didn't run the 40, but he did like do the broad jump and the vertical jump, and his like testing numbers for that were wild. So, I mean, I want to say like upwards of like 90th percentile. So he does have some burst that we do need to worry about. But I mean, like, honestly, the dude would probably go back in the field right now with the cast on his leg and play if they would let him. So I'm not worried that he's not going to come back or anything like that. But we're just witnessed this with, Chris Godwin, and they said the same thing happened with him. We found all this information later, but they said, like, yeah, when you dislocate your ankle, it's not just your ankle. Like, a lot of time there's, obviously ligaments torn. And then there's like a lot of time, like the fibula is fractured or what have you. So like, I have no problem going either way. But like I said, I literally just traded him because I want to, I'm making a run at a title in the league. So, I mean, I think he's still held a decent amount of value, and we'll just kind of see what happens, going forward. But, I'm happy with, Tracy's a nice backup plan for the Giants.
There's a range of outcomes here. I think that's what we have to understand with Skattebo. Like, whether you are selling him, whether you are buying him, you are taking somewhat of a risk. Because this guy could come back just as healthy as he ever was, and you wish that you didn't sell on him or sell low on him, or even sell him at all. Or he comes back and he's just not the same player, and you wish you didn't buy on him. So I think fortune favors the bold. I think betting on a guy like Skattebo, who had been so good the majority of the season, I think that's usually the way I would want to play it in a dynasty league. We have to get into Tyrone Tracy here. You mentioned that you get Tracy back in this deal, obviously, because you're in a championship window. You have a good chance to win this year. You're securing that volume from Tracy. What do you think that backfield is going to look like as far as touches go between Tyrone Tracy and Devin Singletary? And I guess, I mean, I'm not saying that they would, because I don't think the Giants are competing this year with no Neighbors and now no Skattebo, but there's always a possibility that they could add to that backfield room as well. As it stands right now, Tracy versus Singletary, probably going to be Tracy getting the lion's share, but how much is he going to cede to Singletary, do you think?
I think it's gonna. I mean, it seems like the split between Skattebo and Tracy was pretty similar to kind of what Tracy and Singletary were doing after Tracy emerged last year. So I'm kind of looking for that same sort of like share the workload breakup. Because last year Tracy was the RB15 from week 5 onward. So like I feel like that's kind of what I'm expecting as far as just somewhere like running back 2 is kind of what I'm looking for from Tracy. Not necessarily running back 15, but somewhere in the RB2 range. And I mean, I've been adding some Singletary, especially to because if anything does happen to Tracy, Singletary is a guy that I've always kind of liked. Dable obviously likes him because he just keeps bringing him back. So I'm never going to get too stoked about having to start Devin Singletary, but like if he like falls into a RB1 spot, for a week or so, I mean, there's worse options, I think.
I think that's the thing to understand too. Like, regardless of what you believe about these players and how talented they are, you have to start to understand that there's a finite number of players that are going to be successful running backs in the NFL. And if Tyrone Tracy were to go down, it is the Devin Singletary show. I don't even know what they have on that roster after that. It may not be anything. It may not be anything good. Like it could be just some guy, or maybe they just signed somebody. I tried Tyrone Tracy, obviously taken in all of my leagues, so I couldn't pick him up. Devin Singletary was out there in a few of them, and I did play some bids. I got him in a few spots, gritting my teeth, Kevin, as I did it, because I don't necessarily like him, but it doesn't really matter if I like him. To your point, Brian Daboll likes him. The Giants like him. And more importantly, they trust him too. So if anything were to happen to Tracy, that Singletary is going to get some volume. The remainder of the schedule for the Giants, not that fantasy friendly for running backs, but still, we just crave the volume there. We want to get these players on a roster, which is why Singletary is a guy that if you have the spot, I highly recommend it because he is so choice. Let's go back to YouTube here. Tom Smith, does Skattebo remind anyone of former Bucs running back Mike Allstott? And I think the easy analysis here is like, yeah, they're both these big, bruising, fun-loving white guys at running back, So, but I do think that there is more of a nuance to it. I could be wrong in this. I don't really remember Mike Allstott as being a big pass catcher, and not that Skattebo is, but I think he's more talented in that area than Allstott was. I remember Warrick Dunn getting a lot of catches on those Tampa teams back in the day rather than Allstott. And I do think Skattebo is faster. It's weird to say this. I think he's more athletic than Mike Allstott ever was. So I think they're two different types of players, and I'm definitely going to miss not having Skattebo, in my highlights that I'm watching for the remainder of the season. Corey Walters, also on YouTube right now, has a question. He wants to trade Joe Burrow for Lamar Jackson to a team that's out of it. So they'd be acquiring Burrow. They'd be giving up Lamar Jackson. How much more do you think I need to add to Burrow to get it done in Dynasty Superflex? Well, here's the thing on this. If they're already out of it, and I'd have to look at the ages here, but I'm assuming Joe Burrow is several years younger than Lamar Jackson. Joe Burrow, he's older than I thought. He turns 29 this year, which I did not realize. And Lamar Jackson turns 29 in January. So they're basically the same age. I don't know why I thought Lamar Jackson was older, but he's not. So you look at how much more he would have to add on to this. I don't think it's a ton, right? I would think that Lamar Jackson is more fantasy friendly because he runs a lot more than Burrow. Certainly the Ravens are having a little bit of a down season now, but tonight we're going to talk about it here in a little bit. Like they're almost, the force is almost complete as far as their injuries go. Like they're looking a lot healthier than they were when they were dropping all these games, both offensively and defensively. So I don't know if you were trying to get Lamar Jackson in exchange for Joe Burrow, what else would you think needs to be added to that trade, Kevin, roughly, as far as, rookie picks or maybe the type of player that would need to be going into this to make it a little bit more even.
Yeah, I just jumped into our Dynasty ranks on the site, which Sean puts together, and he has them essentially like a first rounder apart, just a random, first round rookie pick apart. So, that's that seems to like make sense. I mean, I don't know if I have Burrow in a lot of leagues, so like, especially just knowing, I mean, they're both kind of all honestly like miss some time with injuries, but just Burrow seemed to be a lot more major than Lamar's. So honestly, like if me personally, if I was on the Burrow end, like trading away Burrow, I mean, I would be open to even like throwing in another second if I had to, because I mean, I think Lamar is still going to be, an elite guy, no question, for a few more years at least. Burrow is, pocket passer. He's got to hit those elite levels all the time to be like on that elite level. And, I think, he's going to hit one every like 3 years, but I don't know if he's going to, consistently be doing it, especially with the way that Cincinnati Bengals team is currently constructed. So, I mean, at least a first round rookie pick is kind of what I would try that and see, see what you get a counter on.
Yeah. And obviously, I mean, the team that's out of it, yeah, I understand that they probably don't care what happens this year, but at the same time, they are giving up an asset that has value for the remainder of the 2025 season in exchange for another asset that has very little value. I mean, like, yeah, Joe Burrow could come back mid-December or whatever, but what's he really going to do for you at that point? Maybe something, maybe nothing. So there is something to understand about that. But this is an interesting trade discussion with Burrow and Jackson and how we sort of apply that. Hopefully we helped you, Corey, on that one. Let's talk some Kansas City Chiefs football here. Tom Pelissero reported that Isiah Pacheco is not day-to-day, but he is week-to-week with a sprained MCL in his knee. Now, he did not practice yesterday. He did not practice today. I think week-to-week, being announced a couple of days ago, probably means he's going to be out this week. That means it's Kareem Hunt. That means it's Brashard Smith. There's also Elijah Mitchell on this team as well. If we look at this game this week, Kevin, for the Chiefs, they go to Buffalo. So this is sort of like a headline game. They are 1.5 point favorites. It is a 52.5 point total. I think that to get down to brass tacks here, are Kareem, not saying you have both these guys on the same roster, but are Kareem Smith and Kareem Hunt and Brashard Smith both startable / flexible in FFPC lineups for week 9?
As much as I'm not a, Kareem Hunt guy anymore, not an Isiah Pacheco guy, like I say they're worth a shot, obviously, if that's kind of like if you're backed into a corner. Because I think it's really going to be, Kareem Hunt is going to be the first, 2 down guy, and then Brashard Smith is going to be the receiving option. I mean, since, Smith is out targeting Hunt 16-4 since week 4. So like, I think they're in their defined roles. And I mean, worth a shot, obviously, a sucker for young guys, young, fast, electric guys, kind of a hater against old, slow guys. So especially, obviously, yeah, but I mean, but the thing is, running back is a volume position. Like I always have to tell myself, like, you don't have to be efficient to be a good running back. You just need to get a ton of work and you'll be fine. I mean, I think the hope with Pacheco being out is like, you see these Breece Hall rumors swirling everywhere. And that's like, that's just, pipe dream sort of things. I don't even want to get there, but just for this week, I mean, to answer your question in a short way, like, yes, I think both of them could be they're guys that are worth taking a shot on if you're backed into a corner.
Yeah, I don't have Hunt on a lot of teams. I have him on a few. He's starting in all of them. Brashard Smith, I'm a little less bullish on, but I think about how much involved they have been getting him in the passing game and knowing that this could turn into a shootout type game. Then yeah, maybe he is flexible in this lineup as well. Speaking of the Chiefs, 6 of 8 targets were caught by Travis Kelce on Monday Night Football. He gets 99 yards and he gets into the end zone against the Commanders. This is all with Rashee Rice. This is what Rice's second week back, I want to say, something like that. And the demise of Travis Kelce, we haven't seen it yet. Now, it's a small sample size, Kevin. Is it still going to happen? Are we still going to see Travis Kelce disappear from this offense where you can't play him in tight end premium leagues anymore? Or are Rice and Kelce actually both going to cook together and make this Chiefs offense the juggernaut that it probably was missing towards the end of the last couple of years, where they were just really good instead of being amazing? If Rice and Kelce can coexist, they could be amazing. Is that going to happen down the stretch here?
Well, I mean, Kelce was the tight end 5 and tight end premium even before, Rice came back. So it's not like he went away. So far this year, he has 4 games as a tight end 1, 4 games as a tight end 2. He's never been below a tight end 2. So I think, he's going to get his, but I do believe that Rice really is the thing that's going to unlock that he's unlocking everything. And it's like Mahomes is already the QB1 before Rice came back. He was fantasy's QB1. I think that's since people are so sick of the Chiefs and so sick of Mahomes, and it's kind of going under the radar. They're yeah, this dude is back to being an elite, the fantasy QB. And it's not like he needed that help because he was already there before Rice came back. But the one thing that I do, want to bring up is Kansas City has the worst tight end schedule rest of the season for fantasy. Their wide receivers are 12th best. When you're looking at an elite offense like this, you can kind of take that with somewhat of a grain of salt. It matters, but does it matter? How much does it really matter? It's not like you're not going to bench Kelce if you have him on your roster because they have a bad schedule. I mean, but I wouldn't be opposed to trading Kelce in any format if I had him, because maybe he finishes tight end 8, or tight end 10. But especially after he has this big game, maybe he's you can go to somebody else and say, hey, look, Rashee Rice is back, and look what he just did. So everybody's saying that he's gone or he's done is kind of overreacting. So I think you have a good basis for trade negotiations. Because even like I said, he was playing well before Rice came back. It's not like he needed Rice to take the attention away. But he is what he is at this point. He's always going to get targets. He's volume dependent. The efficiency, what took a huge crater last year compared to what he used to be. But him and Mahomes are buddies. I don't think Mahomes is just going to throw to him anyway. I don't think he really cares.
It's like that scene in Rounders where they show up to the Elk Lodge or with all the police officers, and Mike McDermott gets accused of cheating with Edward Norton's worm carried, and he's like, "Hey, look, I was winning well before this guy got here," and that's sort of what Travis Kelce is saying. Look, I was crushing it this season well before Rashee Rice got here. He was already being successful. We'll see if he continues to be successful in fantasy lineups down the stretch, but certainly very encouraging signs for that taking place after what we've seen the last couple of weeks. We're going to take a quick break here shortly. I do want to get into one more thing before we do. Michael Carter was cut this week by the Cardinals. Then he was re-signed to the practice squad. And Amari DeMarcado, the Cardinals were off last week on a bye. Amari DeMarcado, ankle injury, seems to be improving. It looks like he's going to go this week. But I guess as I look at this right now, I think Bam Knight, he's not a must start, but he's close to it. Especially in the FFPC where you have 4 flexes, I think you got to find a way to get him in against this Cowboys defense this week. And I think DeMarcado is sort of an afterthought. And I don't even know if Michael Carter gets elevated from the practice squad to the active roster this week. This looks to be Bam Knight's backfield right now, Kevin.
Yeah, and I think it kind of has been the past couple of weeks, honestly. Carter's getting some run, but he hasn't been, efficient. Carter in these last few games since Benson went out, he's only averaging 2.8 yards per carry. He's not even getting up to 3. He had a 12% target share, which has kind of helped him out a lot, especially in PPR. But Carter's getting more work, but he was way less efficient with it. Bam Knight was being used around the goal line. Bam Knight still had a 7% target share over the past couple of games, so it's not like he wasn't getting any looks through the air. So, I'm there with you. I'm kind of just, Carter was a nice story for a week, nice little 0 RB guy to plug in for a week. But yeah, I'm with you that Bam Knight is essentially just, looks better. And, and I think a lot of it was just okay, so DeMarcado had that really dumb fumble at the goal line. We all know about that. But, otherwise, he's probably considerably better than Michael Carter. More explosive, just better in the pass game.
Better pass catcher for sure.
Yeah. So yeah, I think it's going to be, even if Carter does get elevated, like I don't think he's going to see much work at all.
Joe King brings this up on YouTube too. Trey Benson can come back next week. Mm-hmm. Yes, he could. In fact, it was announced on October 1st that Trey Benson was expected to miss 4 to 6 weeks. Well, next Wednesday is 5 weeks. So certainly there's a possibility that he could be coming back. And then obviously he'd be the guy, and Bam Knight would work in when he works in. But with a successful game this week, against the Cowboys, maybe we see a little bit of a Rico Dowdle effect where they can't ignore Knight and they have to work him in, and maybe working him in keeps Benson healthy. And then everybody's hunky-dory in that backfield with like an 80-20 or a 70-30 split. Anything's possible here. And we do know that Trey Benson, in fact, I got to check on this break. I tried, somebody dropped him in one of my leagues, and I got to see if I picked him up or not, if I bid enough to pick up Trey Benson. We roll on with our Thursday night football preview. Next, we celebrate Fantasy Football Night in America. We are 18 minutes away from the Ravens and Dolphins kicking things off. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about whether Lamar Jackson is going to be 100% tonight. Let's talk about whether the Ravens are going to be a strong start in your FFPC main event or Big Gorilla leagues. And on the flip side, what about these non-Jalen Waddle receivers for Miami? Any of them rosterable on your high-stakes team? Kevin Szafraniec will join. We'll break that down as he joins us in the next segment here, as he's joining us all night tonight. The Cat Dad FF on X. You check out all of his content at RotoViz.com. Don't go anywhere. The FFPC Insider Access Show on the Better Sports Network rolls on right after this.
Folks, let me talk to you about my favorite weekly platform to play on. We all play Dynasty and we all play Redraft, but we got to find some place to play weekly. And the FFPC Weekly Challenge is my favorite. If you're like me and you're tired of the constraints of salary caps, or having to do a draft to make a team, or even having to play against these people that are stacking up the same team, stacking up certain games, and you feel like you have to put in 1 million entries or have to have those certain stacks to win, then come play over at FFPC. Really, the only main rule that you have to deal with is that you cannot select multiple players from the same team. I'm going out and I'm trying to find the best of the best of the best players and put them into a lineup. And that's what you can do over at my FFPC. You can go out and you can take the number one running back in Bijan Robinson, and you can also have Saquon Barkley. As long as they're not in the same team, you can put them all into a lineup, right? And there's 4 flexes for this, so there's a lot of flexibility. There's 2 different contests, one that has kickers and defenses, one that's just position players. Then you also have a bunch of different price points you can play at: $35, $100, or $200 buy-in. And you're going out and you're just picking the absolute chalk plays, maybe sneaking in a little bit of a sleeper there, somebody that you think can really blow up that week. And that's how it works. It's one of the best contests out there for the sharpest gamers. And when you win on the FFPC, people take notice. That is where the best high-stakes games are. That's where the best experts play, and that's where I play, because I want to be an FFPC champion and put that title on me, put the money in my pocket, and put that in my bio. FFPC champion, and the FFPC weekly contest is the best place to play during the season.
Hour number 2 of the FFPC Insider Access Show rolls on right now here on the Better Sports Network. Fantasy Football Night in America. God, what a time to be a football fan. Ravens, Dolphins tonight. 2 teams going in opposite directions. The Ravens are getting healthier. The Dolphins are foundering a little bit. So we'll talk about it here with Kevin Szafraniec from RotoViz.com at the Cat Dad FF. I got to remind myself to show my daughter, who is a massive cat fan, your profile photo on X, because she's like, "Oh my God, you had this guy on, and I wasn't able to talk to him. What are you doing here?" So very excited to show her that. Also very excited to tell you about the FFPC Weekly Challenge. No draft, no salary cap. Pick 10 or 12 players, depending upon if you want to play with kickers and defenses or not. Win up to $2,500. 10, 30, and 100 team contests are available. 1 player per team. So tonight, if you want Zay Flowers, you can't have Mark Andrews. If you want to start Tua Tagovailoa, and I don't know why you would, you cannot have Jalen Waddle. That's the slant. It's what makes it fun and so challenging. For the FFPC Weekly Challenge, myffpc.com is where to sign up. myffpc.com. Okay, let's get into tonight's preview. Lamar Jackson is back. There's been no limitations with him, according to NFL Network's Cameron Wolfe, and it seems like maybe Jackson did the smart thing and waiting till he was 100% fully healthy, recovered from this soft tissue injury. Hamstring injuries can be difficult, and the Dolphins are allowing the 4th most yards per carry in the NFL. I love Lamar Jackson tonight, and obviously this report we got from Cameron Wolfe about 40 minutes ago gives me a lot of confidence in that we're going to see grade A, number 1, top option, capital letter version of Lamar Jackson tonight here, Kevin.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just a matter of like how long can the Dolphins keep up, maybe. I mean, we obviously know that the Ravens defense hasn't been great this year. But I have a feeling it might end up turning into like a Derrick Henry game, like a Derrick Henry get right, because I really feel like these next 4 weeks for the Ravens are really like an awesome chance for them to really like get everything back rolling. Over the next 4 weeks, their opponents are combined 8-23. They only face like 3 teams over 500. So like I feel like you said, like they're getting rolling right now. They're getting healthy, and I'm just hoping Lamar Jackson does a whole lot early on. And I feel like it might just be a Derrick Henry game where like last week the Dolphins kind of got a reprieve from being terrible when they shut down Bijan, but like who else did they really have to worry about? This isn't the Kirk Cousins led, or with Bijan Robinson as the only real like viable playmaker in the offense. So I feel like it's probably going to be a blowout, but I have been wrong before. It's happened. So
and listen, that's certainly viable, Kevin. And I think we need to figure that out and suss that out. At the same time, Lamar Jackson could have like 3 or 4 total touchdowns in the first half and he gets lifted, and it's like, whatever, you know what I mean? Like he could crush it enough and you'll feel pretty confident about it. But you're right. I mean, it is kind of playing with fire a little bit. The spread on this is, since this report, not that report would have changed anything. Yeah, it's still at 7.5 for the Ravens, which to me seems a little bit low, but the game is in Miami. And the Dolphins were coming off that impressive victory, which we'll get into that in a little bit, off of Atlanta last week. This is a question selfishly I'm going to ask you here, Kevin, because I've been dealing with this most of the season. Which backup Ravens running back is the one to roster, right? You have Derrick Henry. He's an alien. I get it. He's going to play till he's 60. But at the same time, I do want to protect myself. And not even protect myself, even if I don't have Henry and if I want the backup Ravens running back. Is it Keaton Mitchell? Is it Justice Hill? If Henry were to miss time, who's the guy you want to deploy in this offense?
Well, I think, just straight up, with Henry in there, they've always leaned towards Justice Hill. But, even, the first few games of the year, Keaton was a healthy inactive, even though he popped in the preseason. But if Henry were to go down, I think that's a completely different story, where I would, even, like Rashawn Ali has looked good as well. Like he hasn't looked all that bad, and he might have a little more juice than maybe we give him credit for, to be buried. But between those two guys, like I'd say, my heart always wants to say Keaton Mitchell, just because he's explosive. He's such a fun player. We want to see like these blazing fast guys to emerge. But like, I think it would be a timeshare. And I think, if you're just going to roster one now with Derrick Henry on, where you might have to throw him in the lineup, I think Justice Hill's going to get more work, unfortunately. But I'll let you know, like my heart 100% wants to say, like, I want to see Keaton Mitchell in there. I want to see him get like 15 carries a game and see what he can do.
Mitchell, I think might be the more explosive player, even after that injury that he had. But Hill's going to catch passes too. And the thing that you also have to consider, one of these guys is not stepping in to being Derrick Henry. Like there's going to be a timeshare. There's got to be a timeshare, right? And at that point, to me, in timeshares, I usually default in favor of the pass catcher, who is Justice Hill in this sense. So that's probably where I would lean in that. Wide receivers for Baltimore tonight. Zay Flowers is in all my lineups. And I think about a guy like Rashad Bateman, who former first round pick, got a second contract, if I remember correctly. And certainly you would think that he is figuring into the success of this team. However, is he figuring into the success of your fantasy team? Is he one of the dreaded roster cloggers in both redraft and dynasty, Kevin? How do you view Rashad Bateman for fantasy right now? I have been too scared to cut him in dynasty. I have cut him in redraft. I didn't feel great about it. What's your philosophy on Bateman right now?
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat. I've gotten rid of him in redraft, but he's definitely one of those better in best ball plays. I play in some dynasty leagues that are best ball, so I feel like it's fine to have on those rosters. But like, I when I was doing research for the show today, like I misremembered. I'm like, oh yeah, Rashad Bateman was probably like wide receiver 30 last year. He was really good. He finally had his breakout year. Because a lot of time at the site I was writing about, how he was this efficient deep threat. Like his efficiency was really good and it had this high ADOT and it was just like coming together and he was having, a good year. But, even looking back now, he finishes the wide receiver 40
Right.
And, he was wide receiver 8 in FPOE. So, I mean, he was really efficient, but really even like he had 3 wide receiver 1 games and he had 2 wide receiver 2 games and all the rest was kind of like meh. So, he seems like one of those guys that like you'll drop him and then chase his spike week on the waiver wire, and then you'll drop him again, but you never feel comfortable throwing him in a lineup. So I think, yeah, he is pretty much like really is like the epitome of a roster clogger right now. As much as, I do want to see him succeed. I was happy to see him kind of at least not be absolutely horrible last year. Like he still wasn't as good as what I wanted to remember him as.
I mean, call me crazy. Can I pull this off? Wait for a 2-touchdown Bateman game and then flip him for a second-round pick the following year, second-round rookie pick? Is that pie in the sky, or is that possible? Is that doable?
I mean, I don't know. I honestly don't think I would, but I mean, it only takes one, right? Like I would.
Right.
I mean, like I say, it depends on the league, obviously. I mean, I would be like best ball. Like I said, I do have him on some best ball dynasty teams, and like for that, if I could get like if I could get another year like he had last year where he's wide receiver 40 but he's giving me like 3 wide receiver 1 weeks, like I feel like that's at least worth like a third rounder, me personally. But like say, there could be some people that are even more in love with him. So
I think go ahead.
Oh no, I say if you can find that, if there's an orphan in that league, I'll jump in with it.
Right, exactly. I have to bring up another potential roster clogger here in Isiah Likely. I remember in the preseason when John Harbaugh, beg your pardon, was talking about how he expected Isiah Likely to be an all-pro this year. Well, his all-pro season started off with 3 missed games because of a foot injury, did not get a target in the 4th game, and has stat lines of 1 for 12, 2 for 6, and 2 for 8. Tonight, he has a pretty good matchup against the Dolphins. But if it doesn't happen tonight, Kevin, is Isiah Likely going to happen at all this season? What are we doing with this guy?
Yeah, this one hurts more than the Rashad Bateman one, I'll tell you. Because like in all my tight end premiums, like it's like Isiah Likely, like he's, and he's still going to be, Andrews is still a free agent after this year, even if because there's trade rumors swirling. So even I'm still holding on to him, but since Likely came back in week 5, he has 2 more routes than Andrews. It's 55, 53 in routes, but the targets are 5, 12 in favor of Andrews. As much as I love the guy, and I think like next year might be the year, and even with these, especially kind of talking about how the Ravens are starting to hit their stride, and I mean they're like 2 games out of the AFC North. They still have 2 games against the Bengals and the Steelers. Like I don't understand why they would start selling off guys, even if Andrews is kind of down. Like if you have a Super Bowl window, you go for it. So as much as the rumors have swirled around Andrews, like I don't see it happening, but I've been wrong about trades all the time. Like that's probably one of the most difficult things to predict in the NFL is trades. Because we all know like what makes sense and what doesn't make sense. But I think like I say, like if I've likely, I'm happy to have him in best ball leagues, but I'm never going to feel comfortable. I think this year, it's like throwing him into like a managed lineup,
Yeah.
And minus either Andrews going down or getting hurt. But I mean, who's to say? Like, who's to say? Maybe his foot's healthy. Like he hasn't had Lamar. Cooper. What we've only seen him with Cooper Rush really pretty much all year. So like the perpetual optimist in me wants to say like, yeah, it'll be okay. But at the same time, the realist is kind of like this team is constructed really well. Where like death by 1,000 paper cuts. Like all these guys can have value, but it's going to be hard to pinpoint which one to start on a weekly basis outside of like a dice roll, outside of like Flowers, as you said. Like
he's almost like an injury away type guy, right? Like where you need a Mark Andrews injury, and then all of a sudden he's like a borderline top 10 tight end, and that can be very valuable in the FFPC. Last point I want to make about the Ravens before kickoff here. Would you start the Ravens defense tonight against Miami? I have them going in like 2 or 3 leagues. I feel okay about it, even as bad as they've been over the last month.
Yeah, I feel kind of the same way because I mean Tua's so all over the place. Even when he had that good game, he only had 205 yards. A lot of so the one thing that I do know is the weather isn't bad. Going to be bad down there tonight. I kind of checked it out. It's just mild. It's going to be 70s, like no wind. It's definitely a Tua night. It's as close to a dome as you could get. So, so I'd be happier if it was a torrential downpour. But at the same time, the defense is getting healthier. And I still believe that they're better than what they've been. So I wouldn't be opposed to it at all. Like I would be checking waivers, to look at matchups and things like that. But at the same time, like I think there's definitely a lot worse defenses we could be throwing out there against the Miami.
Do you flipping over to the Dolphins? Can we explain what happened with Tagovailoa last week with what the Falcons were able to do on defense against opposing quarterbacks and passing attacks in previous weeks? And then Tagovailoa, of all people, was the one that lit him up. I'm just writing it off. It's a one-off. I don't believe that this is repeatable. I don't think it's going to happen again, but maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, I looked at this on Monday because I was just like, what happened? Because everybody's saying like, oh, Atlanta, and it's not like Atlanta's played a bunch of really bad, quarterbacks. They had Josh Allen in there. They had, some decent matchups. So it's not like they were beating up on like the Saints and, the Panthers and all that, like in every other game. So digging a little deeper, like in that game, Tua had a 4-yard ADOT, and then 7.2 yards after the catch per reception from his receivers, which was the 4th highest number of the week. So essentially he just was letting his receivers for the most part do the heavy lifting. He had that one really nice touchdown pass to Malik Washington right before halftime at the pylon. But yeah, overall, I'm definitely not believing in Tua right now. Like I said, he only had 205-yard passing, even though he had those 4 TDs. And just like by comparison, usually his ADOT's about 3 yards higher, and he's getting like 2.5 yards less of yards after the catch per reception from his receivers. So I'm with you on that, thinking that's kind of a one-off. But the one thing that I did, talk about in the article on Monday was that he does have like the second best strength of schedule rest of the season for quarterbacks. Oh. And then six of the 8 games that he has are at home, with like trips to against the Jets and Pittsburgh in weeks 14 and 15 are his like potential bad weather games. So I'm not going to ever feel great about picking up Tua, but like if I was hard up, I would be like, okay, well maybe like pick him up and have him as my backup if I'm not super, comfortable with who I have. It seems like Tua is going to be one of those guys that's going to be pretty like readily available in most leagues on the waiver wire. So he's always just one of those fallback guys, I think. But at the same time, he's so erratic and just wide range of outcomes. It's going to be hard to trust him. But like, if anything, like okay, I'll lean into like an easy schedule. And I still believe in the weapons. Like if he could just dump off the H-Han and Waddle over and over again, like
we'd love it.
Yeah,
we'd absolutely love it.
Yeah, I think we'll be okay.
Speaking of H-Han, Ollie Gordon was talked about going into last week's game against Atlanta, and Mike McDaniel said he wanted to get him more involved to have more of a timeshare there. And we did see it, quite frankly, but part of the reason we saw it was because Miami was winning that game most of the time. In most weeks going forward, how much do you see Gordon eating into H-Han's workload? And as as sucky as that sounds, maybe us Achane owners need that, right? Because we need to keep this guy healthy for the fantasy playoffs. We don't want to run him too hard in October and November.
Yeah, and I think it's gonna, like you said, it kind of game script dependent, really. I mean, I don't think he would have gotten as much work as he did without them being up and just completely blowing out the Falcons. But I mean, I love Gordon as a compliment to Achane. Like, it seems, because I like Gordon as a prospect, and it just seems like, and he's not just some big like thumper who can. I mean, he can catch passes too as well. Like, he had a lot of receiving. And I think in his junior year, when he was like he was like 4th or 5th for the Heisman, he had a ton of receptions that year. So he's not just, even though he's a big dude, he's not like just a thumper who's just going to be between the tackles and offer you nothing else. But still, they're not using him as a receiver. He had that touchdown last week, but it was his only target of the game. His season high is only 2 targets all year. Where Achane averages 6.5 per game. I mean, his season high of 10 carries was last week, but there's only been 3 games this year where he's had over 5 carries. And like you said, obviously they want to get him more involved, but I don't think it's really going to be like, where I'm worried that, he's going to take over. Like you said, like, it might be a good thing for Achane. I mean, Achane's back to averaging 5 yards a carry, and he's getting 61% of the carries to only 22% for Gordon all year. So, I mean, I'm not more or less, it's like, yeah, I'd love to see Ollie Gordon get some more work because I have a lot of them in like best ball leagues, but like at the same time, I'm not worried about Achane whatsoever. Like, Achane is one of the easiest, like, set it and forget it players. I mean, and he's so much fun to watch too. It's not just like, oh, here's this good guy who is just going to throw in a lineup and whatever. Like, no, I genuinely get like excited when I get to watch Devin Achane play football.
He's electric, boogie, woogie, woogie, for sure, when it comes to Achane, and we love that. We also love that this game is underway. It was a solid kickoff return for the Dolphins out to their own 43 in the first play from scrimmage. Tagovailoa hits Jalen Waddle over the middle. I believe it was over the middle. I'm watching it right now. Yeah, right down the middle. It's a 20-yard catch and first down as the Dolphins are driving into Baltimore territory already. 45 seconds into the game, they're already at the Ravens 37. Achane with a carry for no gain on first down. Let me read these names off to you here. Nick Westbrook-Ikhine, Malik Washington, Taj Washington, Cedric Wilson, and D. Eskridge. These are the non-Jalen Waddle receivers in Miami. Any of these guys roster worthy? I had Malik Washington on a team last week. I think I cut him. Your thoughts here? Is there no fantasy goodness to be mined from any of these players?
I mean, I'm on the Malik Washington train a little bit. I was really, after Tyreek got hurt, I was like pretty gung-ho trying to add him everywhere. And then, Waller blocked him, in that first game. So like, I ended up dropping him in a bunch of leagues, but then even over the past 2 games, actually, so his 13 targets is the most of anybody on the team. So like, he's actually getting a decent amount of run, it's short sample, obviously, but 10.8 PPR points over the last 2 games. He's averaging like 4.5 receptions for 33 yards, and he's had a touchdown in one of the last 2 games. So like, if you're going to just take a shot on somebody, it would be Malik Washington. Wouldn't be jazzed about throwing him into a lineup, but I do think like Darren Waller getting hurt, it kind of opened things up where it seemed like, Darren Waller kind of jumped into that like short area sort of Jonnu Smith role from last year, which I was kind of hoping that Malik Washington would kind of slide into. But now that Waller's out of there, I do believe like I have a lot more optimism for Washington over any of those, because like the only guys I knew about, like D. Eskridge and Nick Westbrook-Ikhine, I didn't even know those other guys were on the roster. So yeah, I mean, and Miami's always a super concentrated target offense, so like not really worried about like maybe Nick Westbrook-Ikhine has like one spike week or something, but nothing consistent where I'm worried about somebody snatching workload.
The Dolphins have taken a timeout. They want to talk about it. It's 3rd and 6 after a Devon Achane 4-yard catch. 12:51 to go in the first quarter here, as we are part of your 2-screen experience on Prime Video with the Ravens and Dolphins, and of course Kevin Szafraniec and Eric Balkman here on FFPC Insider Access. You touched on it a little bit. Julian Hill, Tanner Connor, Greg Dulcich, and former Wisconsin Badger in my neck of the neighborhood here, Hayden Rucci, also on the Dolphins roster. Tight end premium leagues, are you rostering any of these guys right now, or are you just waiting for Waller to get back?
Yeah, the short answer is just no, I'm not. No, I'm not. Like I said, super concentrated offense where it's like, where I'm not, I think it's going to be like 20%, 20%. There's going to be 3 guys that are over 20 and everybody else is going to get some scraps. So, but yeah, short answer, no.
That is your Thursday Night Football preview as they are underway here in Miami. Devon Achane takes a handoff for 2 yards. It will now be 4th and 4. Decision time for the Miami Dolphins and Mike McDaniel. They have already made that decision, and it is to kick a field goal. Riley Patterson drills a 49-yarder, and the Dolphins are on the board first here. 12:07 to go in the first quarter. Lamar Jackson's about to get the ball. 3-0 Miami. Kyle Shanahan earlier this week said it's too early to say whether Brock Purdy is going to play in Week 9. Now, I'm getting a little sick of this, but I also understand toe injuries are super tricky. When you're dealing with turf toe, and Purdy has already talked about how painful it's been, walking around with this. He's been limited in practice. Mac Jones is practicing in full, and the 49ers certainly have no intention of letting Purdy take the field if the toe is still a problem for him. It looks like it's going to be Mac Jones again this week, and he gets the Giants. Who do you like from this 49ers skill position set? I'm specifically looking at receiver because obviously we're playing McCaffrey and Kittle. But when you think about Mac Jones, Jawan Jennings, Kendrick Bourne, is there anybody that's attractive now that we think we are going to get Mac Jones under center?
I mean, the easy answer is Kittle. I've had a hard time trusting Jawan Jennings lately. Right when he came back.
And Kendrick Bourne as well, Kevin, trusting him.
Kendrick Bourne, he's been one of those guys that's always burned me in the past. I wrote about in the waivers article after he had that big game. I was like, all right, everybody, temper your expectations. Then he came out and had another 142-yard game back to back. So, I think the built-in, I think I would be more open to starting Kendrick Bourne right now over Jennings, honestly, just because I did start. I was like, Jennings will be back, he'll be fine. But then it's like I've got 7 broken ribs and 2, 3 vertebrae broken in my back and a broken neck, and he tells us all this stuff after the game. But I can't imagine that. He's still actually getting a decent amount of volume, but this is just strictly vibes based. I haven't really done any research into this exact comparison between the two, but I would say I would be willing to do probably Bourne over Jennings, which I'm actually going to look up right now.
I think that the other thing too is, and I want to ask you about Brandon Ayuk in a second, but I think part of the reason they've kind of been babying Ayuk is they like Bourne, and Ricky Pearsall too is another guy, wasn't seen at practice today, and because they've had Kendrick Bourne, it's been a bit of a luxury, and I have no doubt that their time in New England, Bourne and Mac Jones spent together, has led to this connection that's been very successful for the Niners here.
Yeah. And yeah, like you said, that's when Bourne actually pops a little bit. I remember his games in New England where I'm like, oh, all right, well, maybe this guy is something, because he'd be one of those guys who would just pop here and there. When he was in San Francisco the first time, gets a few good games in New England, and that was with Mac Jones. And Mac Jones has been pretty good. 18.3 points per game this year. Even in a tough matchup against Houston last week, he had 21 PPR or fantasy points. So the biggest thing is which is kind of wild, is that he really hasn't really been that efficient. He's actually 51st in FOP or FPOE per game this year among QBs, and he's never been above QB 33, even when he was decent with New England. So I thought that was kind of odd because Purdy's generally been pretty good, 15th or higher in most years. So is good Mac Jones. Yeah, he's been good for fantasy, but at the same time, Purdy still is going to be a step up from him when he gets back, I believe. Yeah. And even kind of jumping into, so I just jumped on RotoViz and our GLSP app, which is a game level similarity projection, which is kind of the basis for our rankings. Definitely says it's still the absolute ceiling goes to Kendrick Bourne, but for the most part, looking for games between 15 and 25 points, it prefers Jennings. The thing that we got to realize about this is it doesn't know about injuries. It doesn't know about, it just kind of factors in recent play. and similar players and how they performed against defenses, like similar defenses. So, but just like based on a flat baseline, it does prefer, like I would say it probably prefers Jennings. So I think it might be more of like a grab bag.
Well, like, is Ayuk going to factor into this? I mean, I cut him in a redraft league that I drafted him in like round 18. And I just like, God, that value is so good. And finally, I just like, look, I can't do it anymore. And I let him go. I think it's a lost season.
Yeah, I mean, like I have cautiously optimistic, I guess. Like I don't think he's going to be back to who he was. And we got to remember when he tore his ACL, it's not like he was all pro. He signed an all pro contract, but he wasn't an all pro player when he left. Yeah. So, but I mean, I think he's going to have a spot. It's just sliding in there. Like, I mean, we're getting like no clarity whatsoever on Ricky Pearsall. It's like, yeah, he's got a knee injury. He's out and he's not practicing. And I want to say it was MCL, something to that. I know it was a knee injury.
PCL.
Okay.
Yeah.
So like, but we're not really getting any return timeline clarity. They're just like, yeah, he's hurt, so, and it's not like, obviously, like we don't think Ayuk's going to be back this week, but I mean, I think he's going to have a spot, but I mean, I don't know what that's exactly going to mean, like as far as production wise, I think he's going to be on the field. I think he's probably going to bump Bourne, but maybe that's why they're kind of like giving a little more run now. Like, hey, take your time. Let's see what we got this guy. So I think, I mean, it's, even like after they get rid of Debo, it seemed like this was supposed to be the year we were supposed to get a little more clarity on the San Francisco receiving core. And we just, it's always like so hard to figure out like which one of these guys is going to pop. And we're still there. So, I mean, Kittle's, I think, as long as Kittle's on the field, Kittle is the answer to all of our questions.
That's true. It's very true. The answer for the Ravens scoring a touchdown was not found by Baltimore, as they have a no gain from Derrick Henry, a 7-yard catch to Zay Flowers, and then a bad pass from Lamar Jackson on third down that was dropped by Rashad Bateman. The Ravens have kicked it deep into Dolphins territory. Miami is taking over now with 10:25 to go in the first quarter. 1st and 10 from their own 4-yard line. A great punt by Stout and a great job downing it by Jackson here as we roll on Thursday night. Bill Hollywood chiming in right now. He said, great guest tonight, Eric. And are those records behind him? So do you have, are we in the record room, the famed Szafraniec record room right now? Is that what we're looking at here, Kevin?
Yeah. So like back in a past life, I was an audio engineer and I do a lot of, big music buff and did a lot of like sampling and producing. So that's how I kind of got into like music producing. I'm not a musician, but I do music producing. And so I got into that. So I essentially like use that for sampling, which I enjoy and I still love to do it, but it's, just kind of like a hobby that I do. But yeah, I essentially started collecting in like 2000-ish, probably like 2001, 2003, 2002, like somewhere in the early 2000s. And, and I love it. And, there's probably, I think I probably have like between like 2,000 and 3,000 records. So,
wow.
Yeah.
That is a lot. Holy cow. Now, how often do they get played in your house? Is it just a matter of like, oh, I have them if I need them, or are you actually listening to these from time to time?
No, I listen to from time to time. It's just my free time to listen to them is considerably less than it used to be back in the day. So, I still, I don't know, like maybe once a month I go through a few of them because there's so many of them. Like, as being, a kind of like, a collector of things, you kind of collect things, but you don't always use those things. So, I mean, probably, a good majority of them I have never even listened to. So I, kind of go through 2 or 3 at a time and, just chip away. But I'm actually getting pretty good about not buying any more records right now. So, I'm kind of like staying where I am right now with my collection until I, being a responsible adult kind of.
Right. I get it. I totally get it. Bill Hollywood also asks, I think that is it Terrell Jennings from New England is going to out carry Trevian Henderson. Is that a crazy call? And based on what I've seen so far this year in New England, Kevin, in this backfield, nothing is a crazy call. Rhamondre Stevenson keeps fumbling, and yet Henderson can't get on the field. Antonio Gibson goes down with the torn knee ligament, and Henderson can't get on the field. And then when Stevenson needs a blow, when he needs to get out of the game and catch his breath, they're putting in Terrell Jennings. I don't get it. There's probably stuff going on in practice that we don't know about with Henderson. I would assume so. 10 for 75 did fumble last week as well. But yeah, Jennings out carrying TreVeyon Henderson. Not only I don't think is that not a crazy call, I think it just might be reality.
Yeah, I mean, it's not something I really want to talk. Start crying on air, So, but I mean, it's always a possibility. Like, say who really knows at this point. But yeah, like you said, there's got to be something going on because I mean, minus that fumble, unless that's what you need to do in New England to get more playing time, because it seemed like that was the case earlier in the year. Because he fumbled essentially right at the one. But but I mean, for the most part, I thought Henderson looked good, and I mean, it could come down to the pass blocking, which obviously everybody brings this up now, but that's what people said they loved about TreVeyon Henderson coming out. Oh, he's such a good pass blocker. Oh, he's going to be great. You don't have to, he can right out of the gate. And now everybody's like, he's the worst pass blocker in the NFL. I don't really know what's going on there. Like you said, there's probably more going on behind the scenes than we know of, and nothing's really out of the question right now, even with Rhamondre, not practicing. So it'll be interesting to see kind of what they do.
So what happened just now is my computer decided to restart. Not the one I'm broadcasting on, the other one I'm utilizing for knowledge. And I had the game on. I didn't necessarily see what happened, but all of a sudden the Ravens have taken over deep in Miami territory here. I assume it was a turnover. And it is now 4th and goal, and the Ravens are indeed going for it here. So, and we do have a touchdown, and it is to Mark Andrews. Lamar Jackson to Mark Andrews, a 2-yard touchdown. Welcome back, Lamar Jackson, as he finds Andrews on a rollout for the score on 4th and goal, 8:25 to go in the first quarter. The extra point by Tyler Loop is good. It is now 7-3 Baltimore. So basically what happened after Ollie Gordon took the ball, it was a 3-yard run from Ollie Gordon on first down. And then after that, I can't remember, I said him before, Taj Washington, was it? The receiver for Miami. He got hit with an 11-yard catch. He fumbled, and then Gilman recovered it, brought it down to the 7 for the Dolphins. Henry gets 6 yards down to the 1, and then he loses a yard on second down. Incomplete pass to Isaiah Likely on third down, Kevin. So it looked like it was going to be a likely touchdown, and then it ends up being a Mark Andrews touchdown. Wow, what a sequence. Wow, what a time for my computer to install automatic updates. You got to love it. 7-3 Baltimore, 8:25 to go in the first quarter. Okay, let's get into the other thing before we head over to our start-sit segment. I wanted to bring up the Travis Hunter thing to you, where he had his best game of the season in London right before the bye. And then the news we got from Liam Cohen, and I don't know if we got it directly from Liam Cohen. We got it from plenty of Jaguars beat writers. And then Michael DeRocco, who covers the NFL for ESPN, said he believed that Hunter could start, quote, getting the WR1 treatment from the Jaguars in the season's second half. End quote, which makes perfect sense. He's a rookie. He's a pedigree guy. We've often seen these guys, these rookies, come on late in the season, or at least the second half of the season. All signs pointing to Travis Hunter crushing it down the stretch. I don't want to make it seem like he's a must start here from now to the end of the season. But you look at the Jaguars, pretty decent matchup against Las Vegas this week. Brian Thomas still having problems catching the ball and capturing the magic that he had last year. I'm very bullish on Travis Hunter for the second half of the 2025 season. Kevin, how do you feel about him?
Yeah, I mean, I have Hunter everywhere, almost literally every single, especially redraft teams that I have. But I mean, I'm still a believer in BTJ, honestly. I don't think he's going to get traded. Obviously, they've come out and said that he's not going to get traded. I mean, the thing that when I've watched Hunter is that he's still running the playground routes, which is understandable considering, this guy's taking all the information this guy has to absorb. He's a man, but he's also a kid, he's absorbing all this information. So he's not going to have the most nuanced route tree, but it seems like a lot of time they're either saying run down the field or run down 5 yards and turn around and we'll throw you the ball and let you create after that. And he's had good evasion and he's had all that, but he's also kind of he's got the 10th worst fantasy points over expected among wide receivers so far. But BTJ is also like, he's the 6th worst. So BTJ is even worse than that. And I'm just that big week that he had they were getting absolutely torched by the Rams. So I mean, I'm like I said, I have Hunter everywhere. I'm not looking to get rid of him, but at the same time, I'm still not just going to magically think that he's going to be, he's going to be like light years ahead of BTJ. But at the same time, like, he is worth starting, absolutely. I just don't, the full like wide receiver 1 treatment thing is I'm just kind of like, all right, well, like maybe I take a step back from that. I'm happy that he's emerging, and I think he's going to continue to emerge. But at the same time, like, I don't know if he's going to be like BTJ's, even though BTJ is dealing with a shoulder injury. So we have to take that into account. If he doesn't play this week, they got a good matchup against Las Vegas. So like, if BTJ is out, I'd be happy, I mean, I might start him regardless, but at the same time, I'd be like super gung-ho if BTJ sits this week. But at the same time, like I said, I don't know. I am dialing it a bit back because I still believe that Travis Hunter is still his learning curve in the NFL is considerably larger than most rookies. Believer in his talent. Like I believed, like his talent. I still had Ted above him in the draft as far as just straight up wide receiver, but like he was still like my number 2 guy. But yeah, I think I just want to kind of like be a little more cautious, I guess.
I think, De'Ami Brown is another guy. We're talking about injuries. He's another guy that's hurt right now. And if Brown and Thomas, or even just one of them miss, I think it definitely wheels up. Bill Hollywood saying that Travis Hunter is a must start right now. That's fine. I'm not going to go that far. I don't think he's a must start, but I do think he is a solid start this week as well. What was the other thing I wanted to get to? Oh yeah, the game. So basically the Ravens have kicked off, and it's a Tagovailoa to Achane pass and catch for 19 yards. Achane ends up rushing for 6 yards, and it is now 2nd and 4 at midfield for the Dolphins as they have just entered into Ravens territory. And it looks like a good game so far for Achane as he loses 3 yards on the following play. So I'm not going to jinx it anymore. 3rd and 7 now for Miami from their own 48. I want to talk much more about starter sits, and we're fast running out of time. So let's take our final break. When we come back, we're going to talk about what Kevin Szafraniec says you should do with your week 9 lineups in regards to guys like Deebo Samuel, Hunter Henry, Daniel Jones, and the like. He is Kevin Szafraniec from RotoViz.com. I am Eric Balkman. FFPC Insider Access rolls on here on the Better Sports Network for Fantasy Football Night in America. Don't go anywhere.
Folks, let me talk to you about my favorite weekly platform to play on. We all play Dynasty and we all play Redraft, but we got to find some place to play weekly. And the FFPC Weekly Challenge is my favorite. If you're like me and you're tired of the constraints of salary caps or having to do a draft to make a team, or even having to play against these people that are stacking up the same team, stacking up certain games, and you feel like you have to put in a million entries or have to have those certain stacks to win, then come play over at FFPC. Really, the only main rule that you have to deal with is that you cannot select multiple players from the same team. I'm going out and I'm trying to find the best of the best of the best players and put them into a lineup. And that's what you can do over at my FFPC. You can go out and you can take the number 1 running back in Bijan Robinson, and you can also have Saquon Barkley. As long as they're not in the same team, you can put them all into a lineup. Right. And there's 4 flexes for this. So there's a lot of flexibility. There's 2 different contests, one that has kickers and defenses, one that's just position players. Then you also have a bunch of different price points you can play at: $35, $100, or $200 buy-in. And you're going out and you're just picking the absolute chalk plays, maybe sneaking in a little bit of a sleeper there, somebody that you think can really blow up that week. And that's how it works. It's one of the best contests out there for the sharpest gamers. And when you win on the FFPC, people take notice. That is where the best high stakes games are. That's where the best experts play. And that's where I play, because I want to be an FFPC champion and put that title on me, put the money in my pocket and put that in my bio. FFPC champion. And the FFPC weekly contest is the best place to play during the season.
Bill Hollywood chiming in. Kevin is on the hot seat right now. Yes, you are. The thing is, we're not going to know the correct answers to these questions until the end of week 9, but we will do our best to get you in a position to get your FFPC lineups in order and ready to crush it this coming weekend in fantasy football. Kevin Szafraniec joining me, Eric Balkman, here on FFPC Insider Access on the Better Sports Network. Thank you, Andrew Cooper from Fantasy Alarm, telling you about the FFPC Weekly Challenge. It's a lot of fun to play. You don't have to do a draft. You don't have to build a team under a salary cap. You're just picking 10 players or picking 12 players if you like playing with kickers and defenses. The slant is you can only have one player per team. So if you want Aaron Jones, you can't have Justin Jefferson. If you want Jordan Love, you can't have Tucker Kraft. 10, 30, and 100 team contests. One player per NFL team. MyFFPC.com is where to go. MyFFPC.com. When we last left you, the Dolphins were driving at midfield on 3rd and 7. Greg Dulcich takes a Tua Tagovailoa pass for 9 yards. Incomplete to Jalen Waddle after that. Devon Achane rips off a 22-yard run, getting him near the red zone. Ollie Gordon then comes in for a 3-yard run, back-to-back 3-yard runs as well. So it is in the red zone right now. The Dolphins have it 3rd and 4 from the 15. We'll see what happens, what they do here as time in the first quarter is winding down. We're down to 4:19 in the first quarter. Let's get into some starter sits with Kevin Szafraniec from RotoViz. Running backs is where we're going to start here. I'm going to kick it off with J.K. Dobbins and Rico Dowdle. Two guys that have at least very decent complementary pieces in the backfield. Dobbins dealing with R.J. Harvey, who scored 3 touchdowns last week for the Denver Broncos. And then Rico Dowdle, who, based on what Dave Canales said, it sounds like he's going to get more touches than Chuba Hubbard this week, but who the hell knows? He's in Green Bay. Dobbins is in Houston. Which one would you rather start in week 9, Kevin?
I mean, right now, I'd honestly lean Dowdle. Preface this with saying, like, looking at all this stuff, I usually use like the GLSP app that I mentioned earlier. Like, that's my basis for essentially like every start sit that decision that I have. And then I also look at our strength and schedule app. So like going through these before the show, like this is kind of how I set up, my decisions. And then, obviously take some other context, and I don't always follow it, but at the same time, like that's my basis. So, Denver is the 24th best rushing matchup, but Carolina is the 30th going against Green Bay. But like, in all honesty, I don't think Dave Canales gets enough credit for his run games, honestly, because like people forget, like he's the guy that made Rachaad White the running back PPR running back 4 a couple years ago, and Chuba, was the running back 12, and these aren't guys who are world beaters by any means. So I'm going to kind of lean into Dowdle, and just kind of like a thing that I'm kind of doing is like Dobbins. Well, the Denver running backs have the worst strength schedule over the rest of the season. So I'm kind of like, I have a ton of exposure in redraft. So I'm kind of like thinning them out. So that kind of plays into it as well. Like I'm going to lean into Dowdle, not just like this week, but kind of rest of the season, because they both have tough matchups. Houston is, like I said, one of probably like the least hyped, top ranked defense like we've had in a long, long time. So, tougher than most people would think, but I'd go Dowdle.
It's close for me. I think I lean towards Dobbins here a little bit, but again, Dowdle could be the correct play here. Wow, what a turnaround we had in this Baltimore-Miami game. So on 3rd and short, it was a 3-yard catch for Jalen Waddle to set up 4th and 1 for the Dolphins. They set up and ran a play, however, it was blown dead by a false start from Larry Borum, the right tackle for Miami. Mike McDaniel was livid about this, did not think it should have been a penalty. I watched the replay. It looked like it was the correct call. So instead of 4th and 1, it's 4th and 6. Mike McDaniel sends out Riley Patterson to kick the field goal that he promptly misses from 35 yards out. So it is still 7-3, 2:36 to go in the first quarter. The Ravens taking it over on their own 17. We didn't mention this at all, and I feel like we should, because midweek downgrades are never a good thing in fantasy football, and that's exactly what we got from Woody Marks and the Houston Texans today. Marks was actually added to the injury report today with a calf injury. He has outtouched Nick Chubb over the last 2 weeks, 28-25. It sounds like he did suffer an injury in practice today. So at best, we're looking at a questionable tag. Probably we'll see what happens if Marks is able to get out there and practice tomorrow, but calf injuries are not good. And maybe this just means that, okay, well, Balky, whatever you're going to say here with Woody Marks, I'm going to say you start the other guy because Woody Marks isn't going to play. Well, what if I told you the other guy was Rhamondre Stevenson, who didn't practice at all today because of a toe injury? Clearly, I think both of these guys are on the wrong. This is a horrible question. I should probably just thrown it out, Kevin. Both of these guys are on the wrong side of questionable right now. I don't even know if either one of these guys is even likely to play or be a factor at this point. I don't know if you have any feelings on Marks versus Stevenson after these injury reports that came out a couple hours ago.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be nice if we get him in a wheelchair race, or something.
Right, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But just like as a top-down view, Woody Marks has been kind of reminding me of kind of like what Bucky Irving kind of did last year. Like, he doesn't have insane burst, but he is so smooth. He wasn't a guy that caught a ton of passes. He's an older guy, but I've been pleasantly surprised. He wasn't a guy that I was crazy high on. Heading into the season, just for the fact that his athleticism wasn't all that great, and he's just not really like the type of guy that we go for at RotoViz. But I mean, I just as a top-down view, I've been pleasantly surprised with what I've seen from him. But yeah, overall, I don't know, wheels up on let's hope that we get some trivia love. And I mean, Nick Chubb is an ex-Brown. I'm a Cleveland guy, so I always have a lot of love for Nick Chubb, even if he's looking like he's 7-year-old man running. So
yeah, I think when it's Marks versus Stevenson, I say Chubb. That's the only guy I don't feel good about. Henderson, Jennings, Stevenson, Marks. Chubb's the only guy I feel really good about now. It is a 1-yard carry for Derrick Henry on first down, followed by a 10-yard catch to get a first down from Lamar Jackson to Zay Flowers. And Henry has ripped off another 6-yard run, 2nd and 4 from their own 42, 1:24 to go in the first quarter. Aaron Jones came back last week, Kevin, looked all right. He's still sharing that backfield with Jordan Mason. Tyjae Spears is still sharing the backfield with Tony Pollard, but I think it's interesting that the negative game scripts that Tennessee has found themselves in more often than not plays more into Spears than it does for Pollard. If I were to say you can only play Jones or Spears this week, who would it be?
I mean, I'd go Spears, but any RotoViz reader knows that we love Tyjae Spears there.
Right. Yes.
But I mean, I think even the info, the matchup data and everything kind of leans that way too, because he's got the 9th best matchup this week versus Minnesota's got the 23rd going against Detroit. As far as the GLSP says, their ceilings are pretty equal. It gives a slight lean to Spears, but just with watching games, it seems like over the past 2 games when Spears has gotten more run, he's given a little more. I don't know if we want to call it life to the Titans. I don't know if anybody would say that the Titans offense has life, but at the same time, he's averaging at least 12 PPR points. He's averaging almost 6 yards a carry. He's active in the passing game. And I kind of went and looked back to how Jones played the first 2 weeks with McCarthy. And he was averaging 9 PPR points per game. He was averaging 3.5 yards per carry. Only had 4 targets. So obviously the Vikings week 1 and 2 versus now isn't necessarily an apples to apples comparison. I mean, that we've had some changes and things go on, but Tyjae Spears is my guy, and I'm just crossing my fingers and praying to God that he can stay healthy.
I think you've sold me on it. I think Spears is the guy I'd probably rather play over Aaron Jones this week as well. The first quarter has ended with a bang after Lamar Jackson gets a no-yard carry here on 2nd down. He evades pressure and hits Isaiah Likely for a big-time 35-yard catch down to the Miami 23, and they have reached the end of the first quarter in Miami. It is 7-3 Baltimore with the Dolphins, or I beg your pardon, with the Ravens at the Dolphins 23-yard line when they resume play on Prime Video. We're already resuming our start-sit conversation here, and I'll go to the YouTube chat right now. Todd P70, Alvin Kamara or Samaje Perine flex this week. You would ask me this a week ago. I would have said I have no interest in Perine, but based on what we saw last week with how he carved out a role in that Cincinnati backfield, I'm still going to say Kamara here, Kevin, but this is a more interesting question this week and perhaps requires a little bit more nuance too. I think it's Kamara, but maybe you think otherwise.
No, I mean, I still think it's Kamara as well, but like even watching he got rolled up on last week where his knee bent like the opposite way that that it should have, where you would think it'd be like an MCL, like outside ligament in his knee, kind of would have gotten sprained. So I was kind of surprised to hear that he was practicing, even though he's limited. I mean, P. Ryan looked good, but we also have to, take into account, the game situation that they were in. I mean, that game was just, everybody was running all over everybody last week. So, I was still leaning Kamara. I popped it in to our GLSP app, and it says Kamara by a pretty decent margin, especially like in the middle sort of like middle outcomes, median outcomes.
The lazy analysis would say that Tyler Shough in his first start is going to check the ball down to Kamara a lot, but that really hasn't been the situation that Kamara has found himself at all this season. Both Kamara and Devin Neal, as Bill Hollywood's pointing out, both of them were limited in practice today, both of them dealing with ankle injuries. So we'll see what happens there on Sunday. But yeah, I definitely do trust Kamara more than Samaje Perine at this point. All right, let's move to the receivers. We have Jordan Addison against the Detroit Lions this week, catching balls from J.J. McCarthy for the first time this season. If you could start him at Detroit, would you do so over one Deebo Samuel, who is home against a underrated, I think, Seattle defense?
Yeah, according to our strength of schedule app, it says that Deebo he is the sixth best matchup. Or I mean, when I say Deebo, I mean all the Washington wide receivers in general. It just looks at it by position. And Minnesota has the 15th best matchup. But I mean, like Deebo, we've seen kind of his usage fall down. He was getting 9 opportunities a game, weeks 1 through 5. The last 2, he's only got 6.5. So I want to see that go back up. He was dealing with the heel injury and things like that. And then obviously Daniels is in and out. But I mean, we just want to see Dio get some more run, like like we kind of talked about earlier. They don't really have much else with McLaurin going out. So, but I mean, I don't know. This is one of those more of like where my like heart takes over, because I think I would still roll with Addison just with how good he was. He's been scoring. He's been looking awesome since he came back, minus, whatever. He still, did a bonehead thing where he like left in London and got suspended for a quarter of the game or whatever. So that's never good. Like, but as long as he doesn't do something stupid between now and Sunday, like I think I would go with Addison, but I say that's more of like me, vibes and my heart kind of wanting to like go with the player that I like a lot more than but I think Deebo could have a big game. Obviously, he has the better matchup. He has the easier, he has a better quarterback, easier line to volume. So, maybe I'm wrong on this one. I don't know how you're feeling about it.
I will say, the fact that Addison seemingly finds himself in the end zone so much, whether he's catching it or at least trying to catch, he gets a ton of end zone targets.
Yeah.
And I know that total on that game is 48.5, 49, something like that. I don't trust Washington's offense against Seattle this week. But I do trust that McCarthy is going to find a way to make Addison viable, Addison and Jefferson. So I lean towards Addison over Samuel this week, even though there's no Terry McLaurin and Samuel should see a spike in volume. Normally I'm going with the volume guy, not in this case, more of a feeling on Addison. Speaking of touchdowns, it was a Derrick Henry right tackle 3-yard gain that set up a 20-yard touchdown pass from Lamar Jackson to, you guessed it, Mark Andrews with his second touchdown of the night so far. A beautiful crossing pattern. I believe he crossed paths with Zay Flowers, sort of like one of those unintentional picks or that were kind of intentional. And Andrews gets freed up for the touchdown on the left sideline. It is now 14-3, 14-10 to go in the first half from Miami. The Ravens lead the Dolphins. Jawan Jennings, we've talked a little bit about. Jameson Williams, we have not. You talk about mea culpas on the show. I will take the L on Jameson Williams. I really thought he was going to take a big step forward. I thought this was going to be more his offense this year with new OC John Morton wanting to push the ball downfield more. Has not happened. And I think the opposite's happened. Amon-Ra St. Brown has just been absolutely crushing it this year with Williams taking a back seat. However, knowing what we know about both of these teams, Jameson Williams taking on the Minnesota Vikings this week, and then Juwan Jennings obviously going up against the New York Giants. Which one would you start at flex if you only had one flex position available, Kevin Szafraniec?
I mean, I'd still go with Jameson Williams. We kind of talked a little bit about Juwan Jennings, and I'm not really just trusting his health right now. And even like the past 3 games, he's only been averaging like a shade under 6 PPR points, and he's, getting 6 targets, 3 receptions for 28 yards, no touchdowns. Like that's his average line. Like, I mean, I'd rather take the shot on the guy that can literally put up like 10, 15 points in one. Like he just needs one target, But I did kind of do a little digging, and against Flores's defense in the past 2 years, he's Jameson Williams has only been averaging 6.4 PPR points, like 5 targets, 4 catches for 23 yards. But he's in every other one, he's averaging about 5 more points, about 30 more yards, and a touchdown every third game. So it seems like Flores is doing something. I mean, the same kind of goes for Jared Goff as well. But like I said, I'm just going to go with the guy that can literally, he just needs to get loose once, and he can probably, make his fantasy day that way. And that was also obviously with Ben Johnson. And now, like you mentioned, John Morton. Like you never know. They're coming out the bye. Maybe they got something special lined up for us.
I do like Jared Goff at home too. And while he's had his share of like great games, and Laporta and St. Brown crush it, we've seen Jameson Williams kind of take a back seat. But yeah, I mean, I think I'm with you. I think it's Williams here. If we go deep at the wide receiver spot, what happens if you are facing a decision between these two players? Alec Pierce, who's been on one of the best offenses in pro football this year in Indianapolis, or Kayshon Boutte, who just seemingly all he does is score touchdowns. Boutte is at home against the Falcons defense that got ripped by Tua Tagovailoa last week. Alec Pierce at Pittsburgh, facing a defense that, quite frankly, does not remind me of the Steelers' defenses I remember.
Yeah, I would say they're both great matchups. So Indianapolis has the 5th best matchup. New England has the 17th. So I guess both not great matchups, but I'm more just looking at what happened last week. But we did kind of say hey, maybe that's just more of a one-off. But I'm still believing in Drake May. The guy is he tore up Cleveland's defense, which is pretty awesome last week. He had his issues with Myles Garrett getting to him, but at the same time, it didn't stop him. So I don't want to go as far as saying May's matchup proof, but at the same time, I'm not really too worried about that. So with that being said, their ceilings are pretty close, but Boutte has the better floor. And really what I didn't know until I started digging a little bit earlier in the week is Boutte is the wide receiver 1 in fantasy points over expectation. What you said, all he does is catch touchdowns. But I mean, he's only averaging 3.8 targets a game.
Right.
And he's only had 5 targets. He's only had 3. He's only had 3 games with more than 3 targets all year. So, he's the wide receiver 23, where Pierce had 10 targets a couple weeks ago, and he's only had 2 games less than 5, averaging 5.3 targets. And, Daniel Jones seems like he's doing, not Daniel Jones thing. And, but my heart's going with Boutte. Mm-hmm. Just with the efficiency. I just want the guy attached to the elite quarterback, the guy that I think is elite, where I think, I got to give Daniel Jones his flowers because I definitely didn't expect him to do the things that he's doing this year. And even Pierce, had a couple down seasons before he kind of bounced back last year. But at the same time, I think I'm still going to roll with the guy that's really hot. He's been a wide receiver 1, I think 2 of the last 3 weeks. But it's not to say that's not a boom bust thing. I've been playing Boutte in a lot of my lineups lately, and he's been coming through. So I'm just going to kind of roll with the hot hand.
I think I'm with you on Boutte here. I have to bring this up right now because we are seeing a wide open game. So to kick off the drive, you get Malik Washington for 7 yards, Achane for 6, Dulcich a 9-yard catch, and then Tua Tagovailoa seemingly hits Jalen Waddle deep down the right sideline for a 36-yard penalty or a 36-yard catch. However, a penalty was called on Ollie Gordon for tripping. Mike McDaniel super ticked off again because Ollie Gordon didn't really trip the blitzing linebacker. He just slipped, and it looked like a trip. They called tripping on Gordon. They take him out of the game. Gordon is absolutely livid, and the 36-yard catch that would have put the Dolphins in the red zone is called back. A deep pass incomplete from Tua Tagovailoa. It's now 3rd and 16 from the 42. Gordon actually is getting into it with, I don't know if that's his OC or running backs coach on the sideline. I honestly, I don't think that was Ollie Gordon's fault. I really don't think he tried to trip or anything. It just happened to be that, look that way on it. Anyway, we have to move forward here. No time to get to the tight ends or quarterbacks. I apologize to everybody who was waiting on that. Kevin, for everybody who is watching, and we got a lot of good feedback on you tonight in the chat room, tell them what you're doing at RotoViz so far this season, and let's not worry about the offseason because we'll have you on again. But tell them what you're doing for RotoViz during the season right now.
So I'm generally putting out like 4 to 5 articles a week, waivers every Tuesday, Monday review article on Monday, wide receiver advanced stats. And the thing that I really kind of wanted to bring up is we do have a free article because obviously most of our stuff's behind a paywall. But every Saturday, on our newsletter and on the site, I'm putting together kind of like a composite of all the articles for the week, just taking bits, pieces here and there. And it's 100% free, trying to really just kind of form a narrative to make a 100% free article so people can really get like a bit, like a taste of, especially people who aren't subscribed, obviously. You get a little taste of what we're doing every week. So if you're not signed up for our newsletter, please sign up for that. You'll get that every Saturday. And if not, I mean, to say it is available for free on the site as well. But I mean, like if you like kind of what you're hearing, if you love like Sean Siegel, Blair Andrews, who are like really probably the two of the smartest, sharpest people that I know, what they're doing. And I mean, across the board, I mean, the crew we have at RotoViz is amazing. So I mean, there's not an article that comes out every week that I'm not excited to read. So I would say sign up for that. And then maybe you'll come and sub with us. Like I said, too, for all the guys we didn't get to, and even for the weekly challenge, like I said, that GLSP app is like so clutch. So for subscribers, if you ever have any issue on start sits, like obviously put out a rankings article, but at the same time, you have essentially rankings there every week. You don't have to wait for.
And if you're ever wondering, like maybe you missed something that Kevin put out, he posts them on X at the CatDadFF. Check that out as well. RotoViz.com is where to read everything. Kevin, always a fun time chopping it up with you, hanging out, talking some fantasy football. I knew I was adding too much content to the show tonight because we tend to get into in between the lines and everything, which is great. And I had a lot of fun. But we'll definitely have you back again. Thanks so much, and enjoy the rest of the game tonight.
Yeah, thank you. I always appreciate coming on anytime.
Absolutely. MyFFPC.com is where to go to play the FFPC Weekly Challenge. No draft, no salary cap. Just pick 10 or 12 players, whatever you want, and win up to $2,500 this week. 10, 30, and 100-team contest. MyFFPC.com is where to go for that. Next week, we'll be back at 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time for the Raiders and Broncos with FTN and player profilers Nelson Sousa, the co-champion of the 2016 FFPC main event. He will join me for 2 full hours. That's going to be a lot of fun. For our producer, Sean Engel, our co-host tonight, Kevin Szafraniec, I am Eric Balkman. This has been FFPC Insider Access on the Better Sports Network. Enjoy the rest of the game tonight, and good luck in Week 9.